Baby, let me tell you. There comes a day in a woman's life when the silence in her own home feels louder than thunder. And that morning, when I sat at my kitchen table staring at the cold cup of coffee I'd forgotten to drink, I realized my heart had started to whisper something I'd been too afraid to hear. I was tired. Not the kind of tired you fix with a nap. No, this was soul tired. The kind of tired that settles deep in your bones after years of pouring yourself out for people who act like they can't remember the taste of your love. My name is Auntie Marlene, and this is the story of how I cooked, cared, and sacrificed every dream I ever had, only to learn my family thought my love was disposable. That morning, sunlight slid through the blinds in thin stripes, landing on the dusty picture frames lining my dining room wall. Pictures of my son, my only child, smiling at graduations, birthdays, cookouts, pictures where I stood beside him, proud as any mama could be. Back then he used to look at me like I was his whole world. Now? Child, I had to schedule a phone call with him like he was some celebrity. Just then my phone buzzed. I snatched it up fast, hoping it was him. But no. It was a reminder for a doctor's appointment I'd forgotten I even had. I leaned back, rubbing my temples, whispering, "Lord, ain't this something? I'm out here growing old by myself." I got up slowly, carrying my aching knees with me, and shuffled to the stove. I wasn't even hungry, but cooking was what I knew. Cooking was comfort. Cooking was the language I'd used to show love my whole life. Back when my son, Andre, was little, he used to sit at that very kitchen table doing homework while I fried chicken or stirred a pot of gumbo. Back when laughter filled this house. Before he got married. Before everything changed. Before she came along. Now don't get me wrong. I tried, Lord knows I tried, to welcome my daughter-in-law, Candace. I brought her into my home like she was one of mine. I cooked for her, listened to her, even defended her when folks whispered she had a sharp tongue and a colder heart. But some women just don't want peace. It started small. Comments about my cooking being a bit old-fashioned, or how Andre needed space from me. As if loving my own child meant I was clingy. As if the boy I raised was suddenly her property. I brushed it off at first, told myself, "Marlene, let the girl adjust. New wife, new life." But then the distance started. Visits turned into quick drop-offs, calls got shorter, and somewhere along the line, my son stopped telling me things, stopped sharing, stopped laughing with me. Mama knows when her place in her child's life has been quietly moved to the back. I remember the day it hit me the hardest. Last Thanksgiving, I'd prepared a feast, turkey, ham, mac and cheese, greens, sweet potato pie, enough food to warm every soul in the neighborhood. Hours went by. Andre's car never pulled up. I called him. "Baby, everything all right? Dinner's ready." His voice was low, nervous. "Ma, we're eating with Candace's family this year. She didn't want to drive all the way across town." Across town. 27 minutes. My heart cracked like old porcelain. And now, months later, loneliness had become my new roommate. As I stirred the pot on the stove, I found myself whispering, "How did I end up like this? After all I gave?" My chest tightened with a truth I had been scared to face. Love shouldn't feel like begging, especially, not ever, from your own child. Just then, a sharp knock echoed through my quiet house. I froze. Nobody ever visited me unannounced. My heart thumped as I wiped my hands on my apron and walked toward the door. Something in the air felt heavy, thick with the kind of tension that tells a woman her life is about to shift. When I opened that door, Lord have mercy, I didn't expect to see who was standing there. Baby. When I opened that front door, my breath caught in my chest like it forgot how to move, because standing there, looking bold as brass, was my daughter-in-law, Candace, and the way she stared at me, whew, it felt like someone had dragged a cold wind right into my warm house. "Hello, Marlene," she said, her voice sharp enough to slice through butter. "Let me tell you something. When a woman says your name like it's a problem on her to-do list, you know the visit isn't friendly." I stood there gripping the door frame. my heart thudding slow and heavy. "Candace, what brings you here?" She didn't even smile, didn't even pretend. She just lifted her chin like she was preparing for a fight. "We need to talk. We need to talk." The 4 words no mother ever wants to hear from the woman who sits beside her son. I stepped aside, though my spirit was whispering, "Lord, what is this now?" She walked in with those stiletto heels clicking on my wooden floor like a ticking clock, counting down to something I wasn't ready for. The living room felt smaller with her in it. You know how some people carry tension the way others carry perfume? That was Candace. She sat down on my couch without waiting to be invited, crossing her legs, her purse perched beside her like it was judging me too. I sat across from her slowly, folding my hands in my lap. "Go on then," I said gently. "Say what you came to say." Candace took a deep breath. "Andre and I think it's time to set some boundaries." My stomach dropped. Boundaries? After all I'd done for that boy, after raising him alone, after working 2 jobs to keep food on the table, after sitting at his bedside through every fever and heartbreak, she wanted to talk about boundaries? I felt a heat rise in my chest, not anger at first, just deep, aching confusion. "What kind of boundaries, baby?" I asked, trying to keep my voice soft, steady. She leaned forward. "For one, you can't just stop by our house without calling first." I blinked. "Candace, I haven't stopped by in months." "Well," she said, brushing imaginary dust off her skirt, "it's still a rule." The hurt formed in my chest like a slow bruise. I swallowed. "Anything else?" She didn't hesitate. "You need to understand that Andre has his own family now. You can't expect him to be at your house every holiday, dropping everything to check on you or calling every night." My mouth fell open, but no words came out. She wasn't done. "And quite frankly, we think you're becoming a little too dependent on him. Andre has a lot on his plate, and you make him feel guilty when he can't be here." The edges of my vision blurred, not from tears, those hadn't come yet, but from the weight of her accusations. Dependent? On the child I raised? The child I poured every ounce of love, time, and energy into? The child I protected even from his own father's cold ways? I felt my voice tremble as I spoke. "Candace, all I ever wanted was to know my son is all right. I don't ask for much." She shrugged. "That's the problem. You think you don't, but you do." For a long moment, silence filled the room. My house. My quiet little sanctuary. And this woman had marched right in and tried to rewrite my place in my own son's life. But then something changed inside me. Quiet but firm, like a candle being lit in a dark room. I sat up straighter. "Candace," I said slowly, "I don't know what you came here expecting, but I'm Andre's mother. I'm not your enemy. And I don't need permission to love my own child." Her lips pressed tight, her eyes flashing. "Well, you better learn." Just then, the front door opened, and in walked Andre, my son, looking between us like he'd just stepped into a storm he helped create. "Baby." The moment Andre stepped into that living room, the air tightened so hard I swear even the walls were holding their breath. My son, my only child, stood there with his keys dangling from his hand, eyes flicking from me to Candace like he wasn't sure which one of us might explode first. Candace, what's going on?" he asked, voice low. But before I could even open my mouth, Candace jumped up like she'd been waiting for her cue. "I told you she'd overreact," she said, brushing past him. "I came here to talk calmly, and she's twisting everything." I stared at her, stunned. Twisting? Lord, when did the truth start sounding like lies? Andre frowned. "Candace, slow down." But she wasn't slowing down, not one bit. She turned, her finger pointed at me with more attitude than grace. I tried to explain the boundaries we talked about, but she isn't listening. I felt a tremor inside me, the kind that shakes loose old memories. Memories of holding this boy when he cried. Memories of saving every penny to give him a better life. Memories of promises he once made to always protect me. "Andre," I whispered, Is that true? You sent her here to talk for you? He dropped his gaze to the floor. Ma, we just thought— No, I interrupted softly. I want to hear you say it. My heart pounded in my ears. Because nothing hurts an old woman more than hearing her grown child repeat someone else's words. Andre ran a hand across the back of his neck, a nervous habit he'd had since he was 10. Ma, you've been calling a lot lately. Sometimes 3-4 times a day. I called because I was worried, I said. That's all. He sighed. I know, but I've got work, responsibilities, a family now. Family. The word felt like a slap. I didn't stop being your family, I whispered. Candace folded her arms. And no one said you're not, but you need to understand your role. My role. Lord, give me strength. I swallowed the sting of humiliation rising in my chest. Andre, baby, when did loving you become a burden? He didn't answer. He couldn't look at me. And right there, something inside me broke. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet, painful snap, like an old piece of thread finally giving way after years of holding everything together. I forced a small breath. All right then. If me checking on you is too much, if my presence in your life is something that needs rules, fine. You just tell me what you need from me, and I'll respect it. Candace looked triumphant, like she'd won something. But Andre, he looked ashamed. Ma, we're not trying to push you away, he said softly. I smiled. But it wasn't the kind of smile that reaches the heart. It was the kind a woman makes when she's trying to stay dignified while something inside her is crying. I know, I said. You just want space, and I'll give it to you. Silence wrapped around us again. Candace grabbed her bag. See? That wasn't so hard. But before she could turn toward the door, Andre stepped closer to me. Ma, you sure you're okay? I looked at his face. The same face I once wiped tears from, the same face that used to light up when I walked into a room, but now it looked unsure, distant, like he was standing halfway between the boy I raised and the man he was becoming. So I reached out and touched his hand lightly. Baby, I've been okay through things much worse. Don't you worry about me. He nodded, but I could see in his eyes he didn't fully believe it. Candace tugged at his sleeve. Andre, let's go. We're going to be late. He glanced at me one more time, guilt written all over him. Then he walked out the door with her. The moment the door closed, my house sank into a silence so heavy it felt like grief. I sank into my chair, pressing my hand to my chest. Not because I was heartbroken, but because I finally understood just how disposable my love had become in their eyes. But what I didn't know was this. Life was about to bring a storm to their marriage, one that would force Andre right back to my doorstep. Baby, let me tell you, there's a certain kind of quiet that follows heartache. It ain't peaceful, and it sure ain't gentle. It's the kind of quiet that sits on your chest, whispering all the things you don't want to admit. And that night, after Andre and Candace walked out my door, that quiet wrapped itself around me like a heavy blanket. I sat there on my couch, hands trembling just a little, staring at the door they'd disappeared through. My son, my sweet boy, looking at me with guilt in his eyes and fear in his voice. And that woman, Lord have mercy, strutting around like she'd done me a favor. I didn't cry, though, not yet. Sometimes sadness is too deep to spill out right away. Instead, I went to the kitchen, pulled out my old cast-iron pot, and started cooking. That's what I do when my heart hurts. My hands move so my spirit doesn't collapse. I chopped onions, peppers, celery, stirring them slow, letting the smell fill every corner of my home. But even the comfort of cooking couldn't stop my mind from wandering. When did I become the stranger in his life? When did loving my own child turn into an inconvenience? How did I raise him with so much care, only for him to treat my love like something he had to ration out? I tried to shake the thoughts loose, but they clung to me. Hours passed. The sky outside turned from gold to gray, and eventually to a deep, empty black. I finished cooking but couldn't eat a single bite. I packed everything into containers, slipped them into the fridge, and made my way to my bedroom. But sleep didn't come. Not for a long time. When it finally did, it broke too soon. Shattered by my phone ringing early in the morning, I jolted awake, heart racing. Andre never called this early. A mother knows. When the phone rings at dawn, something is wrong. I snatched it up. "Hello, Andre?" All I heard was deep breathing at first. Then his voice, shaky, broken, not the voice of the man he pretended to be around Candace. "Ma, can I come over?" My heart jumped to my throat. "Baby, what happened? Are you all right?" He hesitated. A long, painful pause. Then, "It's Candace. We got into it last night." I sat up straighter. "Into it how?" Another silence, then a sigh that carried more shame than he could hide. "She threw something at me. A glass." My breath froze. "Lord Jesus, did it hit you?" "Just my arm. I'm fine. Ma." But I could hear the tremor in his voice. He wasn't fine. Not even close. "Andre," I whispered, "come home. Right now. I'm here." He didn't argue, didn't make excuses, didn't defend her. Just said softly, "Okay, I'm on my way." When I hung up, I sat there on the edge of my bed, feeling a strange mix of fear and something else, something I wasn't proud of but couldn't deny. Vindication. Not because I wanted him hurt. Lord knows I'd take every bruise for him if I could. But because now he'd finally see what I'd been seeing all along. I hurried to the kitchen, put on fresh coffee, and opened the curtains so he'd see the light when he walked in. My house might have been small, might have been quiet, might have been lonely, but it was safe, it was warm, it was his. Minutes later, I heard his car pull up. Then the soft shuffle of his feet climbing my porch steps. When he stepped through that door, he looked like a man who'd been carrying storms on his shoulders for far too long. Eyes tired, soul heavy. Hope cracked down the middle. I opened my arms without a word, and he walked straight into them. But as I held him, rocking him the way I used to when he was small, I knew one truth deep in my bones. This fight wasn't just between him and Candace. No, baby. This was the beginning of something bigger, something that would force all of us to face truths we'd been avoiding for years. Baby, the way Andre sank into my arms. It wasn't like a grown man giving his mama a polite hug. No, it was like a tired child finally finding the only place left in the world where he didn't have to pretend to be strong. I held him close, my hand running across the back of his head the way I used to when nightmares chased his sleep at night. And for a few moments, we just stayed there, two broken hearts leaning on each other. When he finally pulled back, I got a good look at him. His eyes were red, not from crying, but from the kind of exhaustion that comes when life has been cruel for too long. And on his arm, Lord, have mercy, there was a fresh bruise, shaped like the edge of a glass. I felt heat rise in my chest, not warmth, not love. Fire. "Sit down, baby," I said softly, trying not to let my voice shake with the anger bubbling inside me. "Sit and tell your mama what happened." He dropped onto the couch like his legs couldn't carry him anymore. I sat beside him, close enough so he'd know he didn't have to face this alone. Andre stared at the bruise on his arm as if he still couldn't believe it. Then he exhaled slowly. "Ma, I don't know what's happening to us." I stayed silent. Sometimes silence is the only way to let someone's truth spill out. "It started after we left here," he said. "Candace was already mad. She said I didn't defend her enough, said you were trying to manipulate me." I blinked. "Manipulate you? Baby, I didn't even raise my voice." "I know," he whispered, "but Candace, she thinks you're trying to control me." I let out a slow breath. "And what do you think?" He looked up at me, lost, ashamed, hurting. I think she's overwhelmed. And I think I've been trying so hard to keep peace in that house that I've been letting things slide." "Things?" I asked. His shoulders slumped. She yells a lot now, gets angry over nothing. She accuses me of choosing you over her even when I'm not doing anything. Last night she said if I really loved her, I'd cut you off completely. I felt my stomach twist. Andre, I said gently, is this the first time she's thrown something at you? He hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. Baby, I whispered, touching his hand. Look at me. He finally lifted his eyes. You are not supposed to live in fear of the woman you married. That ain't love. That's control dressed up in vows. He swallowed, hard. I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want you to worry. Oh, honey, I said, shaking my head. A mother knows when her child is hurting, even if he never says a word. You've been pulling away from me because you've been drowning, and drowning people don't have energy to reach for anything. His lips trembled. He wasn't crying, but he was close. Ma, I don't know what to do. I reached for his hand and squeezed it firm. You don't have to figure it all out today. You're safe here, you hear me? As long as I'm breathing, you'll always have somewhere to land. He nodded slowly, as if my words were giving him something he hadn't felt in a long time: security. Just then, his phone buzzed on the coffee table. We both looked at it. Candace's name flashed across the screen. The vibration sounded too loud, too sharp, like a warning. Andre froze. Answer it? I asked softly. He shook his head, fear flickering in his eyes. I can't. Not right now. The phone buzzed again, and again and again. 20 missed calls, 9 messages, then the last one popped up. If you think running to your mama is going to save you, you're wrong. My breath caught. I whispered, Baby, she's unraveling. Andre stared at the message, his hands shaking. But he wasn't shaking from fear anymore. No, it was something else, something stronger, something rising in him slowly, like a man finally waking up. Ma, he said softly, I think I need help. And right then and there, I knew this wasn't just a family disagreement. This was a storm, a real one. And both of us were about to be pulled into the heart of it. Baby, when Andre said, I think I need help, something inside my chest clenched, not with fear, but with a kind of painful relief. Because a mother sees the truth long before a child can admit it, and my son, he'd been walking in darkness for a long time. I leaned forward, cupping his hands inside mine the way I used to when he was just a boy with scraped knees and big dreams. Baby, I'm right here. Tell me what kind of help you think you need. He swallowed, eyes drifting toward the window as though he was searching for courage somewhere in the sunlight. I don't even know where to start, Ma. I don't know how I got here. I don't know how I let things get this bad. Honey, I said gently, you don't fix a storm by blaming yourself for the rain. You face it, one step at a time. He sighed and leaned back, rubbing his face with both hands. Candace wasn't always like this. In the beginning she was sweet, supportive, strong-willed, yeah, but never violent, never jealous, never accusing me of things I wasn't even thinking about. I listened carefully, letting him empty his heart without interruption. Then we got married, he continued. Everything shifted. She became different, controlling, suspicious, angry all the time, and the more I tried to calm her, the worse it got. I tightened my grip on his hand. Baby, that's not something you fix with patience alone. He nodded, his voice cracking. I know. I just didn't want to admit I married someone who could hurt me. Lord, hearing that nearly took the breath right out of me. Andre, I whispered, listen to me. You are not weak. You hear me? You're a good man who tried hard to make a marriage work. But trying don't mean letting yourself become someone's punching bag. He nodded slowly, tears gathering at the edges of his eyes but refusing to fall. Just then, a loud bang shook the front door. Both of us turned toward the sound. Another bang, then another. Then, Andre, open this door right now! Candace, her voice sliced through the quiet of my house like a knife, Andre's face drained of color. She followed me, he whispered. Baby, my heart jumped so hard I felt it in my throat. I stood up slowly, steadying myself on the armrest. "Stay here," I said firmly. "Let me handle this." He grabbed my wrist. "Ma, don't, she's angry, really angry." I patted his hand. "Baby, I've been dealing with angry people my whole life. I know how to stand firm." I walked toward the door, each step slow, deliberate. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears, but I wasn't scared. No, what I felt was something deeper, something older, a protective fire only a mother can carry. When I opened the door, Candace stood there with wild eyes and hair sticking out like she'd run her hands through it 100 times. Her chest heaved as though she'd sprinted all the way to my porch. "Marlene," she snapped. "Where is my husband?" "Candace," I said calmly, "you need to lower your voice." Her eyes widened, fury flashing like lightning. "Don't you tell me what to do. He left the house in the middle of the night because of you. Now get out of my way." She tried to push past me, but I stepped forward, blocking the entrance with my full weight and all the strength the good Lord ever gave me. "You will not come into my home like this," I said quietly. "You need to calm down." "I want my husband!" she screamed, pounding her fist against the doorframe. Behind me, I felt Andre stand up, but I held my hand back, signaling him to stay put. Candace's breathing got heavier, her eyes burned, and for a moment I saw the truth, not confidence, not strength. Fear, desperation, a woman losing control of the narrative she'd been gripping too tightly. "Candace," I said gently, "Andre is safe. He's here because he needs space. You need to respect that." She stared at me, stunned that I dared to hold the line. Then her voice dropped to a low, trembling whisper. "Give me my husband, or you're going to regret this." Baby, that threat cut through the morning air like frost. Behind me, Andre finally spoke. "Candace, stop," he said, stepping into view. She gasped like she'd seen a ghost. But the look he gave her? It wasn't the look of a scared man anymore. It was the look of someone who finally saw the truth and was done running from it. Baby. When Andre stepped into that doorway right behind me, the world seemed to freeze. Candace's breath hitched. Her eyes widened. And for the first time since I'd met that girl, I saw something crack behind her anger, a flash of fear, or maybe the realization that the man she thought she controlled was slipping from her fingers. Andre stepped forward slowly, not aggressive, not timid, just steady. "Candace," he said, voice low but clear. "We need to stop." She blinked fast. "Stop? Stop? Andre, you left home in the middle of the night. You ignored my calls. You blocked my number. And now you're hiding behind her?" Andre shook his head. "She's not hiding me. I came here because I needed space. I needed to think." Candace's nostrils flared. "Space? We're married. You don't take space from your wife. You come home and fix things." Her hands were shaking now, her voice on the edge of breaking. "Candace," he said softly, "I'm not going home with you today." Her whole face twisted, confusion fighting with rage. "Why? Because she told you not to?" Andre stood taller. "No, because I told myself not to." Lord, I felt that. A mother knows when her child finally stands up for himself, even if it takes years. Candace stuttered, her voice trembling. "Andre, you're choosing her over me." "I'm choosing my sanity," he replied quietly. The way her face fell, baby. It was like the ground dropped out from under her. "I love you," she snapped. "Everything I do because I love you. If I get angry, it's because I care. If I yell, it's because I'm scared of losing you." Andre sighed and rubbed his forehead. "You don't hurt the people you love to keep them close, Candace. That's not how love works." She looked at him, really looked at him, like she was seeing the truth for the first time. Then she laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that didn't belong in the quiet of my home. "So this is it?" she whispered. "You run to your mother and suddenly you find your backbone? She put these ideas in your head, didn't she?" I stepped forward, but Andre held out his hand slightly, signaling he had this. "Candace, my mother didn't make me leave," he said. Your actions did. That's when the tears hit her. Hot, fast, the kind that pour from a place too deep to hide. You can't leave me, she whispered, her voice shaking so hard it barely came out. You promised you'd never walk away. Andre's voice softened, but didn't bend. I'm not walking away, I'm stepping back. There's a difference. She shook her head violently. No, you don't get to do this. You don't get to embarrass me, run away, and hide behind your mother like you're some lost little boy. I felt that one slice through the air, but Andre didn't flinch this time. I'm not hiding, he said. I'm healing. Candace stared at him, breathing hard, eyes wild with hurt she didn't know how to manage. Then she pointed at me. This is your fault, she hissed. You've been turning him against me since day one. I raised my chin slowly. Baby, if the only thing keeping your marriage together is him cutting off his own mother, then your marriage was already in trouble. She looked like she might lunge forward, but Andre stepped between us. Candace, he said firmly, go home. We'll talk later, when you've calmed down and when I'm ready. Her lips trembled. No, Andre, please don't do this. I need you. He closed his eyes for a moment, pain tightening his jaw. Then, I'm not leaving you, but I am setting boundaries, and I'm not coming home today. Candace let out a broken sob, and then she whispered something so quiet I almost didn't hear it. If you walk away now, you'll lose me forever. Andre opened his eyes slowly. Candace, if I go back with you right now, I'll lose myself. Baby. That girl broke right in front of us. She turned and stumbled down the steps, tears streaming, fumbling to unlock her car. She didn't look back, just slammed the door and sped off into the street. And as the dust settled, Andre leaned against the doorway, his shoulders shaking silently. But not from fear anymore. No. This time it was from release, from truth, from the weight finally falling off him. I walked up behind him, placed my hand on his back, and whispered, Baby, storms may tear through your life, but they don't last forever. He nodded, but the pain in his eyes told me the worst was still coming. Baby. That afternoon carried a heaviness you could feel all the way down in your bones. After Candace drove off, the house settled into a silence that didn't feel peaceful. It felt wounded, like the walls had soaked in every painful word, every broken plea, every crack in that young marriage. Andre stood there in the doorway a long time, staring out at the road she'd sped down, shoulders slumped like a man carrying a lifetime of weight. I watched him quietly, giving him space to breathe. Because sometimes the worst thing you can do is rush a hurting soul into talking before their heart's ready. Finally, he let out a slow, shaky sigh and walked back into the living room. He sat on the couch, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. I took a seat beside him, close enough for him to feel my presence, but not so close that he felt crowded. Baby, I said gently, talk to your mama. He didn't lift his head, just shook it. Ma, I don't even know who I am anymore. I feel like I've spent the last 2 years walking on glass. My heart clenched. Andre, honey, you should never feel unsafe in your own marriage. He rubbed the back of his neck. I know, but she wasn't always like this. Sometimes she's sweet, loving, scared to lose me. Then out of nowhere, she snaps. I nodded slowly. That girl's fighting battles she hasn't named yet, but that doesn't mean you have to stand there and let her throw the punches. He finally looked up at me. Do you think she's dangerous? I took a deep breath. Baby, she's unpredictable. That's dangerous enough. He swallowed hard. I don't want to give up on her. I'm not telling you to, I said softly, but you can't keep losing yourself trying to hold somebody else together. He leaned back, staring at the ceiling. I can't believe she came here like that. Oh, baby, I whispered, that wasn't a visit. That was desperation. We both sat in silence for a moment, listening to the steady hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. Then I stood up and headed toward the stove. You hungry? I asked. Because you haven't eaten a thing since yesterday. He hesitated. I guess. I smiled gently. Come on then, your mama will fix you a plate. While I warmed up the gumbo from the night before, I watched him from over my shoulder. He seemed smaller somehow, like life had been carving pieces out of him, little by little. Ma? He said suddenly, voice low. I didn't want you to know how bad things were. I didn't want you to think I failed. I stopped stirring. Oh, honey, I said softly, turning toward him. You didn't fail. You hear me? Marriage is work, but it ain't supposed to hurt like this. He nodded, but his eyes filled with something that broke me a little. Shame. Shame no man deserves to carry. Baby, I added, I just thank God you came here instead of letting it get worse. He didn't answer, just stared at the table as I set the bowl in front of him. He took a small bite, and I swear his whole body seemed to exhale. This tastes like home, he whispered. I sat down beside him. Home is where healing starts. He ate slowly, thoughtfully, like every spoonful grounded him a little more. When he finished, he pushed the bowl aside and leaned back. I need to stay here for a few days, he said softly, until I figure out what to do. I reached across the table and took his hand. This is your house as much as it is mine. Stay as long as you need. He nodded gratefully, but before I could say more, his phone buzzed again. He stiffened. I glanced at the screen. 25 new messages, 11 missed calls, all from Candace. Andre's breath caught, fear flickering across his face again. Ma, he whispered, voice trembling. What if she shows up again? I looked him straight in the eye, steady and sure. Baby, if she does, she won't get past me. I promise you that. But deep down, I already knew that storm wasn't over, not by a long shot. Baby, I didn't sleep at all that night, not a wink, because every time the house creaked or the wind brushed against the window, I found myself sitting up in bed, listening hard, wondering if Candace was out there somewhere in the dark, storming up my walkway with rage in her heart. And I'll tell you the truth, fear wasn't what kept me awake. No, honey, it was something heavier, something every mother knows too well, that feeling of standing between your child and the world, even when your bones are tired, even when your heart is aching, even when you know the fight ahead is bigger than you. I checked on Andre twice that night. He was sleeping on the old pull-out couch in the den, my company room, though it hadn't seen company since he brought home a childhood friend almost 20 years ago. He slept curled on his side, hands tucked under his cheek like he used to when he was little. And the sight of him, my grown son, bruised and exhausted, just about broke me all over again. I whispered a prayer over him. Lord, place your hand on my baby. Protect his mind, protect his peace, and give me the strength to stand. By morning, rain was tapping against the windows, soft but steady, like God himself was whispering, brace yourself. Andre shuffled into the kitchen around 7 a.m., still tired but looking a little clearer. Morning, Ma. Morning, baby, I said gently. You sleep all right? He shrugged. Better than I have in a long time. I fixed him a plate, eggs, grits, biscuits, turkey sausage, because a man can't carry burdens on an empty stomach. He ate in silence, the kind of silence that comes from thinking too hard. Ma, he said finally, voice low, I think I need to talk to somebody, a therapist or something. I nodded slowly. That's a good step, baby. And I think, he continued, taking a deep breath, I think I need to stay away from Candace for a while, for real this time. I placed my hand on his. You're doing what's best for you. Ain't no shame in choosing peace. Before he could respond, a loud thud hit the front porch. Both of us froze. Another thud. Then a sound like something being dragged. Andre stood up fast. Ma! I held up my hand. Stay back. Let me look. I walked to the door, heart thumping but steps steady. When I opened it, a burst of cold air rushed in, and sitting right there on my porch was a suitcase, a big one, stuffed full. My breath caught. Attached to the handle was a note written in shaky handwriting. If you want to leave, leave then. Candace. I stared at that suitcase, the rain dripping off the corners, and I felt a chill sit right on my spine. Andre came up behind me, eyes widening. She put my stuff out? I nodded slowly. He let out a bitter laugh, half disbelief, half heartbreak. So that's it. That's her answer. But baby, the thing that sent every alarm bell ringing wasn't the suitcase. It was the car parked across the street. Candace's car. Engine off. Lights dim. Just sitting there, watching. I whispered, Andre, go back inside. He tensed. Ma. I can talk to her. No, I said sharply. Not like this. Not when she's in that state. He hesitated, but finally stepped back into the house. I stood on the porch, folding my arms tight around myself, staring at that car through the rain. I couldn't see her face, but I felt her gaze locked on me, angry, accusing, unraveling. Slowly, the car started, pulled away, turned the corner, disappeared into the gray morning. I exhaled the breath I didn't know I was holding. Inside, Andre sat on the couch, elbows on his knees, head hanging. She really tossed me out like trash, he whispered. I sat beside him. Baby, sometimes people show you the truth in ways you can't ignore. He nodded slowly, voice cracking. I think I hit my breaking point, Ma. I placed my hand over his. Hitting the breaking point ain't always bad, I said softly. Sometimes it's where the healing starts. He leaned over and rested his head on my shoulder like he used to when he was a boy afraid of thunder. And outside, the rain kept falling, steady, cleansing, as if something in the universe knew everything was about to change. Baby, that whole day felt like walking across thin ice. Every step gentle, every breath quiet, and underneath it all, fear whispering that one wrong move could crack everything wide open. Andre tried to keep busy, folding the blankets, cleaning out the den, organizing the little pile of clothes he'd taken from the suitcase, but I could see the storm still inside him. His hands trembled when he thought I wasn't looking. His shoulders tensed every time a car drove by. His eyes stayed glued to his phone, waiting, dreading, needing, fearing all at once. The boy was exhausted in places sleep can't reach. Around noon, I made lunch. Just tomato soup and grilled cheese, simple food for a complicated day. We ate in silence until Andre finally whispered, Ma, do you think she's coming back? I took a slow sip of my soup. She might. A woman in that kind of emotional state, she ain't thinking clear. She's thinking scared, and scared people do unpredictable things. Andre nodded, staring down at his bowl as though it could give him answers. I don't want her to hurt herself, or hurt anybody else. I reached over and touched his hand gently. Baby, we'll handle whatever comes. You ain't alone. He nodded, but the worry still lingered like a shadow behind his eyes. Hours passed. Rain softened into a mist. Andre dozed off on the couch, arms crossed over his chest. Exhaustion finally knocking him out. I sat in the armchair across from him, knitting to steady my own nerves. The rhythm helped calm my heart, a small comfort in a house full of tension. But, baby, peace never stays long when trouble is waiting outside your door. Around 5 p.m., just as the sky dimmed into a soft evening blue, I heard it. Tap, tap, tap. Not on the door, on the window. A soft sound, but sharp enough to make my heart jump into my throat. I whispered, Lord, not again. I stood slowly, careful not to wake Andre, and stepped toward the front door. I looked outside through the peephole, nothing. So I checked the window, and there she was, Candace, standing in my yard, hair plastered to her face from the mist, eyes swollen, makeup smeared down her cheeks like dark rivers. She wasn't yelling this time. She wasn't raging. She just stood there, looking lost. I opened the door a crack. Candace, go home. She shook her head weakly. Please, please let me talk to him. Honey, I said gently, he's resting. Today ain't the day. She stepped closer, voice trembling. I'm sorry, I overreacted. I panicked. I was scared he didn't love me anymore. I didn't mean to throw anything. I was just upset. Her words were broken pieces falling out of her mouth. I love him, she whispered. I love him so much it hurts. And I don't know how to fix myself, but I can't lose him. I felt a familiar ache, because I'd seen that kind of pain before. Not from her, but from women who loved too fearfully, too fiercely, too destructively. Candace, I said, soft but firm, loving someone don't mean holding them hostage to your emotions. Tears streamed down her face. Please, please let me apologize. I swear I'll be calm. I just need 1 minute. Behind me, I heard the couch creak. Andre's voice, weak, hesitant, tired, floated into the air. Ma, it's okay. I turned as he walked toward the door, eyes heavy but determined. Candace gasped when she saw him. You left me, she sobbed. You really left. Andre's voice trembled. Candace, you need help, real help, and I can't be the only one holding us together anymore. She reached for him, but he stepped back. That distance hit her like a slap. I'm not coming home today, he said softly. And not tomorrow either. We need space. We need counseling. We need something. Candace shook her head. No. If we separate now, we'll fall apart. Andre took a deep, shaky breath. Then maybe falling apart is what needs to happen before anything can be rebuilt. Her face twisted in heartbreak. She whispered, I hate her. Her eyes flicked toward me. Andre shook his head firmly. Don't do that. Don't put this on my mother. This is about us. Candace collapsed into a sob so deep it echoed through the yard. And baby, that's when I realized this wasn't just a marriage on the edge. This was a breaking, a necessary one, a painful one nobody could avoid anymore. Baby. Let me tell you, that evening left my heart heavy in ways I hadn't felt in years. I watched Candace stumble to her car, her hands trembling on the steering wheel, sobs rattling through her chest. Andre stayed by the door, eyes distant, his own body shaking with the exhaustion of finally standing firm. And me? I just stood there, leaning against the doorframe, feeling the weight of every lesson life had ever tried to teach me. I thought about the years I'd spent pouring love into Andre, raising him as a single mother, sacrificing dreams I'd tucked away in corners, working nights and weekends so he could have a future I couldn't always imagine for myself. All the times I baked, I cooked, I worried, I prayed, I nursed, I hugged, I scolded, all to shape him into a man who could stand in this world. And now here he was, standing tall, but bruised. Not from me, baby, but from a marriage that couldn't contain love without tearing at the edges of his soul. Andre came back inside, shutting the door softly behind him. He sat on the couch, head in his hands again. Ma, he whispered. I didn't think it would get this bad. I sat beside him, hand on his shoulder. Baby. Sometimes people don't show you who they really are until the storm hits. That's not your fault. He lifted his head and looked at me, eyes wide. But she's angry. I don't want her to hate me. I shook my head gently. Honey, people will do what they do. You can't control them. You can only control your heart. And right now, your heart needs protection. He nodded, letting my words sink in. For the first time that day, I saw a flicker of relief in his eyes. Not complete peace, but a glimmer, a hint that he finally understood he didn't have to carry everyone else's storms alone. We sat in silence for a while, just breathing, listening to the soft drip of rain outside, feeling the quiet that finally didn't feel so heavy. I spoke softly, almost to myself. Love ain't supposed to hurt this much, baby. If it does, it's not love. It's control, fear, insecurity, all of it wrapped in someone's expectations. And sometimes the only way to protect love is to step back. Andre swallowed hard. I've been trying to protect it my whole life, even when it cost me my peace. Exactly, I said, voice gentle but firm. And peace is precious. Don't ever forget that. He leaned back, closing his eyes, letting out a long, shaky sigh. Ma, what would I do without you? I smiled, brushing my fingers across his hair like I used to when he was 10. Baby, you'd still survive, but I'll always be here to catch you when the world gets heavy. He smiled faintly, a little laugh escaping. You're my anchor, Ma. And baby. I realized then something I hadn't allowed myself to admit. Even after all the heartbreak, even after all the nights I cried myself to sleep wondering if my love mattered, it did. It always had. Because a mother's love, even when ignored, even when tested, even when treated like it's disposable, it never runs out, it never weakens, and it will always be the safe place a child can return to, even when the world turns against them. We sat there, hand in hand, letting the silence stretch long and unbroken. Outside, the rain had stopped, the storm had passed, at least for now, and baby, for the first time that day, the house felt like home again. Not because everything was fixed, oh no, but because the heart in it, the one that mattered most, was safe. Andre finally looked at me with a clarity I hadn't seen in weeks. Ma, thank you for not letting me fall apart. For being here when I needed it the most. I kissed the top of his head softly. Baby, that's what mothers are for. Even when you don't see it, even when you think you're alone, we're here. We always are. And in that quiet, soft space between the past hurt and the uncertain future, I felt something shift. Something strong. Something unbreakable. Baby. Let me tell you, the next few days felt like walking through a shadow and sunlight all at once. Andre stayed at my house, finally giving himself permission to rest, to breathe, to untangle the mess that had been choking him for months. And I watched over him like I always had, with quiet pride and fierce determination, knowing he had to heal on his own, but also knowing he would never heal if he tried to do it alone. The mornings were quiet. Andre would sit at the kitchen table with his coffee, staring out the window at the trees swaying in the wind, deep in thought. Sometimes he spoke, sometimes he didn't. And sometimes, just sometimes, I caught him talking to himself, working through things I didn't need to hear, but I understood anyway. Ma, he said one morning, eyes distant, I keep thinking about how quickly things went wrong. How I missed the signs. I pulled my chair closer. Baby, don't beat yourself up. Sometimes we don't see the storm coming until it's already here. That don't make you weak. That makes you human. He nodded, swallowing hard. I feel guilty. For leaving her. For standing up for myself. For making choices that might hurt her. I put my hand over his. Honey, you can't fix other people's hurt. You can only protect your own heart. And when you stop protecting it, that's when life starts breaking you apart. He took a deep breath, eyes tearing up. I know, but it hurts to feel like I'm failing everyone, even myself. I shook my head gently. Baby, you ain't failing. You're learning. Pain teaches us lessons some folks never get to see. And you're learning the hardest ones. That afternoon, we went through the clothes she had left behind. The ones in the suitcase she abandoned on the porch. Andre sorted them quietly, folding some, bagging others, and while he did it, I watched him, seeing the man I'd raised in every careful movement. He was still bruised, baby, emotionally, spiritually, even physically. But there was something in his eyes I hadn't seen in weeks. Clarity. I don't know if we can fix this, he whispered as he packed a bag for Candace. I don't even know if I want to. Baby, I said softly, sometimes fixing ain't the goal. Sometimes the goal is surviving. Sometimes the goal is learning who you are when the world tries to crush you. He looked at me then, and I saw the gratitude in his eyes, tinged with exhaustion. Ma, thank you for being my anchor, for being my safe place. I smiled, brushing a hand across his cheek. Baby, that's what mamas are for. Even when folks don't see it, even when love feels wasted, it's never wasted. You'll see that one day. Later that evening, Andre called Candace. Not to fight, not to argue, not to beg, just to speak carefully, honestly, setting boundaries he hadn't dared to set before. I stayed in the kitchen, listening softly from the other room. His voice was firm but kind, his words deliberate. And for the first time, baby, I heard a son standing on his own, still tender, still human, but no longer hiding behind anyone, not even me. When he hung up, he sank into the couch, relief washing over him in waves. "Ma, it feels good," he said, voice soft, almost a whisper. "To finally tell her what I need, without fear, without guilt." I held his hand tightly. "Baby, that's strength. That's the kind of strength that lasts a lifetime." And in that quiet, I realized something. Sometimes love isn't just about giving. Sometimes love is about letting go. Sometimes it's about standing firm when everything shakes. And sometimes it's about teaching your children that their heart matters as much as anyone else's in this world. Outside, the night settled quietly over my house. The storm had passed, but we both knew it wasn't over. Not yet. Life had a way of testing us. But for the first time in a long time, we were ready to face it, together. Baby, let me tell you, that next morning hit us like a cold wind rolling off the river. Andre was up early, moving around the kitchen like he'd aged 10 years in one night. His hands shook a little as he poured coffee, his eyes tired but focused, and I knew he was thinking, weighing, trying to decide how much more he could bear. I poured myself a cup and joined him at the table. "Baby, you all right?" He looked up, face tight with worry. "Ma, I keep thinking about what I said to Candace last night, about boundaries, about space, about myself." I nodded slowly. "Sometimes the truth hurts, baby, but it's the only thing that lasts. Lies and pretending will only break you further." He leaned back in his chair, staring at the steam rising from his cup. I feel guilty, Ma. Guilty for wanting to protect myself. Guilty for wanting peace. Guilty for not running back to fix things for her. Honey." I reached over and took his hand. "Andre, listen to me. Loving someone ain't supposed to hurt this much. Protecting your heart ain't selfish. And choosing yourself when you've been beaten down by fear or anger, that's wisdom." He swallowed hard, looking down. "But what about my mom? I mean, you've always been there, but I keep wondering, was I selfish to let you carry so much of my weight all these years?" "Baby." My heart squeezed. "Honey, a mama's love ain't a burden. It ain't ever selfish. You coming to me now, asking for help, letting me be here with you, that's not weakness, that's trust. And that's love too." Andre took a deep breath, eyes glistening. "I don't want to keep living in fear, Ma. I don't want to keep pretending everything's fine when it's not. I want to be honest, even if it hurts." I smiled softly. "That's all I ever wanted for you, baby. Honesty, integrity, courage. You've got it in you, even if it feels like you don't sometimes." For a few moments we just sat there, hands intertwined, listening to the soft hum of the refrigerator. The house was quiet, peaceful for the first time in what felt like forever, but heavy with unspoken truths. "Ma," Andre said finally, voice small, hesitant, "do you think I'm making the right choice? Staying here instead of going back?" I looked at him, my eyes soft but firm. "Baby, I think you're finally doing something you never learned to do before. You're listening to your own heart, and sometimes that's the bravest thing you can do in life." He nodded slowly, a weight lifting from his shoulders. I don't want to hurt her. I really don't. But I also can't keep getting hurt." I squeezed his hand gently. "Honey, sometimes people have to learn the hard way. She's going to have to face her own truth. And you're going to have to take care of yours. That's life, baby. That's reality." He let out a long, shaky breath. "I think I finally understand. I've been running from it all my life, running from what hurts, running from confrontation, running from myself. I nodded, eyes glistening with tears I refused to let fall just yet. And now you're not running anymore, you're standing. That's the first step toward healing. Outside, the rain had stopped completely. Sunlight broke through the clouds, glinting off the wet leaves in the yard. And baby, it felt symbolic. A new day? A fresh start? Andre looked out the window, voice quiet. Ma, I'm scared, but I feel free. I smiled, brushing a hand across his cheek. Baby, freedom is scary sometimes, but it's worth it. Always worth it. We sat there a little longer, holding hands, feeling the weight of the past days settle behind us, knowing that the days ahead would still be hard, but at least now we were facing them with eyes wide open. Baby, let me tell you, just when you think the storm has passed, life has a way of sneaking back in like a shadow you didn't hear creeping. Andre and I had settled into a fragile peace. He slept better, ate better, even laughed a little when I teased him about spilling coffee on the counter. The house felt lighter. For a moment, it almost felt normal. But honey, normal is a delicate thing. And in our world, it doesn't last long. It started mid-morning. I was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for lunch, when I heard a knock at the door. Not the polite kind, more urgent, insistent. I wiped my hands and peeked through the peephole. It was Candace. My stomach sank like a stone. Her hair was still messy, eyes red from crying, but there was something new now, something I hadn't seen before. Determination. I opened the door slowly. Candace? What is it? She didn't answer, just stood there, shifting her weight nervously, glancing past me. Andre, who had been sitting at the table reading the newspaper, finally looked up. Candace, what are you doing here? His voice was calm, but his jaw was tight. She flinched, then straightened, eyes locking on his. I needed to see you. I needed to talk, face to face. I placed a hand on Andre's shoulder. Baby, you don't have to do this, not now. He shook his head slightly. Ma, maybe this is something I need to hear. I sighed. Some storms can't be avoided, and some conversations have to happen, no matter how much your heart aches. Candace stepped inside, hesitating. I've been wrong, about a lot, about myself, about us. Andre nodded slowly. I know. Her voice cracked. I didn't mean to hurt you, to scare you, to make you feel trapped. I was scared. Scared of losing you. Scared of being alone. Andre's eyes softened, but he didn't move closer. Candace, I understand fear, but fear doesn't excuse hurting the person you love, or yourself. Tears ran down her cheeks. I see that now. I'm trying, Andre. I really am. I don't want to be this person anymore, but I can't do it alone. I watched him carefully. My son, the boy I raised, now a man standing tall, weighing forgiveness and self-preservation. Candace, he said softly, I don't hate you, but I need time, space, counseling, real change, not just promises. She nodded, swallowing hard. I'll do whatever it takes. I need you. And I didn't know how to ask for help before. I wasn't strong enough. Andre's voice trembled slightly. Then start now, but understand this. Change isn't instant, and I won't risk my heart for empty words again. She looked at him, eyes wide and pleading. I'll prove it. I'll change. I stepped forward, voice steady but firm. Candace, Andre's heart is precious. You must honor it, not test it. If you truly want this to work, it won't be about fear. It will be about respect, and consistency, and real effort every single day. She nodded, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. I understand, Marlene. I swear I do. Andre sighed, running a hand through his hair. We'll see. But I'm holding on to my peace first. That's non-negotiable. The air was thick with tension and possibility. A mother's heart always wants to fix everything, but life doesn't always work that way. Sometimes all you can do is stand there, guide, and hope the lessons are heard. I looked at my son, feeling pride swell even through the worry. He had finally found his voice. And baby, sometimes, that's all a mother can hope for. Baby. Let me tell you, the days that followed were tense, heavy with unspoken words, and the kind of caution that presses on your chest until you can barely breathe. Andre stayed with me. Still cautious, still bruised, still fragile, but growing stronger by the hour. And Candace, well, she was trying. I could see it in the way she called instead of showing up unannounced, the way she texted instead of storming into my house. But baby, trust ain't rebuilt overnight. One evening, Andre and I were sitting on the porch, the sky streaked with purples and golds, sipping iced tea. I could tell he was holding something inside, something heavy. "Ma," he said finally, voice quiet, "I think I need to make a decision. About her, about us." I set my glass down, giving him my full attention. "Baby, sometimes decisions like that need to be made from a place of clarity, not anger or fear." He nodded. "I know, but I can't keep going back and forth. It's tearing me apart. Every time I hear from her, every time I think about her, it's like my heart is split in two." I reached out and placed a hand on his arm. "Honey, I know it hurts, but pain teaches us truths, and you're learning who you are, what you deserve, and where your limits are. That's a gift, even if it doesn't feel like it right now." He swallowed hard, eyes glistening. "Ma, I don't hate her, I don't know if I can trust her. Not yet. Maybe never fully. I don't want to hurt her, but I can't keep hurting myself either." I nodded slowly. "Baby, that's called wisdom. You've been loving too long without boundaries. Now you're learning that self-respect is part of love, too." He sighed, looking out at the yard, his jaw tight. "I think I'm done running, done avoiding the truth. I have to face it. Face her. Face my feelings. Face what I want and need." I felt my heart swell. That's my boy. My son, standing tall despite all the hurt, finally owning his truth. The next day, Candace came by again, this time calmer, softer. She knocked politely, waited. Andre opened the door, his posture firm but respectful. "Candace," he said, voice steady, "we need to talk, honestly. And we need to be honest about what we can handle." She nodded, swallowing hard. "I understand. I'll do whatever it takes. Just, please, I don't want to lose you." He looked at her, eyes searching, voice quiet but unwavering. "I don't know if we can go back to how it was, but I do know this. I'm willing to try. If you are willing to change, truly change. No shortcuts, no excuses." Her lips trembled. "I'll do it. I swear I'll do it." I watched from the kitchen window as they stood in the doorway, two adults, hearts exposed, wrestling with love, fear, and regret. And baby, that's when I realized something every mama learns too late. Sometimes love isn't about saving anyone. Sometimes it's about letting them face the consequences of their choices while you stand beside them, steady and unwavering. Andre reached out, took her hand, not in anger, not in surrender, but in cautious hope, and I knew this wasn't the end of the storm, not by far, but maybe, just maybe, it was the first step toward something real. Baby, sometimes the hardest battles bring the clearest lessons. Sometimes standing firm in love, in truth, in your values, that's what shapes the heart that won't break under pressure. Andre and Candace had reached the point where words weren't enough anymore, promises weren't enough, and pain, well, pain had taught us all what we needed to know. It started early that morning. I was in the kitchen, frying eggs and bacon, the smell of breakfast curling through the house when Andre came in. His eyes were steady, but his jaw was tight, like a man who had wrestled with himself all night. "Ma," he said, voice low, "I've made a decision. About Candace. About me. About everything." I wiped my hands on a towel, bracing myself. "Baby, what is it?" He looked down, took a deep breath, and said the words that had been hanging between us for weeks. "I love her, but I can't go back to the way things were. Not yet. I need boundaries. I need space. I need peace." My heart ached for him, but I nodded, holding back tears. "Baby, that's wisdom. It ain't easy to say no to someone you love, but sometimes saying no is what keeps love alive." He looked at me, eyes glistening. "Ma, I don't want to hurt her. I can't keep hurting myself, and I can't keep letting her control everything, every part of me." I took his hands in mine. "Honey, the world will try to take pieces of you every day. But your heart? That's yours to guard. That's your sanctuary. Don't let anyone take that from you." Later that day, Candace came by again. She looked calmer this time, more composed, but still vulnerable. She approached the door slowly, waiting for Andre to open it. "Andre," she whispered, "I've been thinking about everything. About me, about us. I know I've hurt you. I know I've scared you. And I want to do better. I swear I do." Andre nodded, but his face was unreadable. "Candace, I believe in change. I want to believe. But it's going to take time, and I need to see it in action, not just hear it in words." She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I'll show you. I'll do anything. I don't want to lose you. And baby." He didn't run. He didn't give in. He didn't shut the door. He stood firm, honest, strong. Not perfect, but strong enough to protect his heart. I watched from the kitchen window, my hands folded, my heart swelling with pride and relief. That's my boy. My son, who had been bruised, tested, and almost broken, but who stood tall, finally owning the strength I knew had always been inside him. Andre took her hand, carefully, gently, with caution, and said, "We'll try, but we do it right this time. No shortcuts, no fear, just honesty, boundaries, and love that respects each other." Candace nodded, trembling. "I understand. I'll do it. Baby." I realized in that moment that love has a price. The price isn't measured in flowers or fancy words. The price is courage. The price is honesty. The price is standing firm even when your heart is shaking. And a mother's strength? It's the quiet force that lets a child stumble, fall, rise, and finally find themselves, knowing that no matter how messy, how painful, how complicated life gets, you'll always have someone to catch you. That day I knew it. I had done my job, not by controlling, not by forcing, not by begging, but by standing steady, by loving fiercely, by teaching my son that his heart is sacred. Andre and Candace were beginning a new chapter, uncertain, fragile, but honest. And me? I was finally able to breathe. Finally able to rest, knowing that even in the chaos, even in the heartbreak, love, real love, can survive. Because, baby, sometimes the hardest storms reveal the strongest hearts, and sometimes a mother's love is the only anchor that keeps her children from drifting too far into the storm.